Hello, this video is going to be officially a review of the movie trilogy, the Before Trilogy, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight. Before I get into that, the story of those movies, I want to read a little bit from this book. I'll tell you what the book is after I read the quote. Quote, the universal and absolute need, so he's talking about a need, the universal and absolute need out of which art on its formal side arises, has its source in the fact that man is a thinking consciousness, i.e., that he draws out of himself and makes explicit for himself that which he is, and generally whatever he is. So he's talking about how it is in the nature of human being to think. It is not the case that people exist and live and then they start thinking. No, the moment that a human being exists in its true form, thinking is already a part of it, at least occasionally, as a capacity at least. Continuing, the things of nature are only immediate and single, but man, human, as mind, reduplicates himself, inasmuch as prima facie he is like the things of nature. So it seems at first that a human is part of nature. But in the second place, he is really for himself, perceives himself, has ideas of himself, so has beliefs about himself, who he is, what kind of creature he is, thinks about himself, and only thus is active self-realizedness. Next page, I'm going to skip a little bit. It talks about art and having a theoretical side and a practical side. And how when we create, when we think, we have the urge to do things, to at least say things and then do things, and to change our environment. That is rooted in our thinking capacity. Quote again, this purpose he achieves by the modification of external things upon which he impresses the seal of his inner being, and then finds repeated in them his own characteristics. So he sees himself in the things that he did outside. Man does this in order as a free subject to strip the outer world of its stubborn foreignness. The world that we see in the beginning is foreign, it is strange, it is stubborn. And we do these modifications to change it, to put in our environment, to put in our world some small things that remind us of ourselves, of how we are. That's what he means when he says we change and put our own characteristics in our environments. And to enjoy in the shape and fashion of things a mere external reality of himself. This is from Hegel's Introductory Lectures on Aesthetics. This is from the third lecture, the third chapter, first part. Now, back to, beginning, with the discussion of Before Sunrise, the beginning. I want to talk about the three phases in which I watched this movie. The first time I was a relatively younger man, and I was very impressed with the dialogues. Like, wow, they're so deep. They have such deep conversations, such deep ideas. And I was like, wow, out of those big ideas comes a relationship. They also happen to agree enough to fall in love. The second time I saw it, I was not as young, and I wasn't impressed with them. I was like, what a stupid conversation, especially the guy overestimates his ideas. He doesn't have big ideas. He's trying to impress the girl, so I saw through the limitations. The third time I saw with you, more recently, with my wife, and when I saw the series of movies in the third phase, more recently, I didn't care as much about what they were saying. And what they were saying, the couple, the boy and the girl, it is not that important, because what they are saying is really a reflection of something deeper that they are doing. And what they are doing is what Hegel is talking about. He's talking about they're expressing their thinking. They are sharing their interpretation of reality. When two people come together and they take a risk, and it is a big risk when you tell somebody how you see the world, how you interpret this world, what the world means to you. Is there, for example, real love? Is real love, does it really exist? Or is it a myth? Is it stupid to believe in it? Or are people good? Or, what is the meaning of life? When you say your beliefs, when you share your beliefs, your interpretations about the world with somebody, it is a risk, because They might laugh at you. They might say, "Oh, you're thinking too much," or that's philosophical. I don't care, or I disagree with you strongly. So it is a risk when you share your interpretation with somebody. But it is possible for the other person to sit with you and think and listen to you and not necessarily agree, but do the same with you, to also share their point of view, the way they see the world, their perspective. And when that happens, a kind of intimacy is generated. And a kind of intimacy that is truly human. Why is it truly human? Because it is part of human nature to think and to express that thinking in an attempt to feel less alone in the world. So again, just like Hegel talks about creating art to change the foreignness and stubbornness of the reality in which we live and we find ourselves. Conversation is an art form. When we engage in a conversation with somebody, we are creating art. We are creating a relationship that makes us feel less alone. And the movie also shows the story in the transition from the first part to the second part, that when this kind of intimacy is created, it is not something that can be replaced easily. And you can't just forget about it and say goodbye, even though the two of them initially said, "Oh, let's just keep it special." It is special because it doesn't last, it's just this one day. But that was a mistake, because it is not in the nature of this kind of intimacy to be so ephemeral. It has to be lasting. It is really, when we think about the truth of this kind of relationship, it is a lasting bond. And it lasted for 9 years, even though they didn't see each other. And it lasted through their creation of art. She created songs, she created music, and he wrote a book about that encounter, that intimacy. And the last movie, I'm going to jump to the last, which in the very beginning, man leaves his son in the airport, comes out of the airport, and we are with the camera, we follow him from behind. So follow him out of the airport, and the scene outside of the airport is revealed, and that waltz is played in the background. And the moment that waltz is playing, we see the woman, casually talking on the phone, leaning against the car. And the song tells us, the audience, the viewers, that they are still in love. And this woman that we are seeing is being revealed. She's still the love of his life. So there's no doubt about that. But there's the struggle. The struggle continues because the interpretation that these two have, for many reasons, their cultural backgrounds, the gender differences, and their expectations, beliefs, that there's a struggle between them. And they never reach a point where one of them submits to the other one. They both preserve their wildness, the difference between them. And if they keep discussing interpretations at a philosophical level, they disagree and they have to leave each other. And the big fight happens in the third movie. It's a bit depressing and they react to it. But then they return in the last scene to another conversation, which is, they pick up the conversation where it is about something very simple and silly. It's not about big philosophy. It's about a thought experiment about time traveling. And so they go back and forth, creating artful conversation. And we see not that they are getting back together or they are having a big fight. We see the nature of their love. And we see the nature of their love coming back and saving them, or persisting through time. I would say they're good films, but we shouldn't be distracted by what they actually say. What they are doing is more important than what they are saying. The words are not that important. It is the risk-taking, the interpretations they share with each other, the risks they are taking, and how they listen to each other. And it's important when the girl, for example, says many times, "Oh, it's very silly, but blah, 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 blah. I think in this way about this issue." This all has to do with sharing interpretation and creating intimacy in a human form. That's it. I think that's good. That's good as a unique review. Thank you.
Cool.